Unashamed, the recovery podcast.
Hello, recovery fam, and welcome to another episode of the Unashamed Recovery Podcast with Josh and Drew. That's Drew. I'm Josh. And here at the Unashamed Recovery Podcast, we believe that there is healing in the story of our scars and that it is okay to not be okay.
It is our sole mission to break the shame and stigma of addiction by sharing stories by real people that have been through real recovery, real addiction, and people that are, practicing real sobriety. So enough of that. Let's kind of dive into today's episode.
Yeah, speaking of real people and real recovery, today is another one of those days that I love because we got a testimony. And it's not from an author, a recovery author. It's not from a pastor. It's not from this recovery celebrity. Today we got a testimony from just a regular Joe.
I wouldn't call him regular.
Well,
I mean,
what I'm saying is, like, he's not,
I would call him.
It's a real person in recovery. That's what I'm getting at.
Extraordinarily regular.
Extraordinary. The extraordinary. Yeah, what I'm getting at is it's just not. It's a regular person like me and you in recovery. This ain't because there's recovery celebrities that are out there. We ain't doing that. We got a real person in real recovery today sharing their story, and I'm excited about it. There's no throwing out a doctor in front of his name. It's Jay. I love it. It's just Jay. And it's just a regular person sharing how they came out of the hell of addiction. So welcome, Jay. Welcome to the Unashamed Recovery Podcast. We're glad you're here, brother.
Hello, glad to be here.
So
You sound like a guru. Hello, everyone.
I am a guru.
He's a recovery doctor. Let's just say that.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
The recovery doctor,
Recovery
Jay.
doctor.
I like
Jay
it.
Berry.
I like it. That may stick. If it sticks, you heard it here first on Unashamed Recovery
I got a
Podcast.
PhD in life.
Hey, man, if that's the case, man, I may have a masterate. Not a masterate. There we go.
Master it?
I mastered it.
You got
I did one episode good.
You've been doing great.
I
with
did one episode
reconciliation.
good
The
and
last
just couldn't carry
episode, now
over.
here we go.
So anyway, so Jake, on this wild testimony that we're about to go through, 'cause I'm sure that it's wild. Like, everybody's wild. I mean, we get to sit one through this. That's not wild. So as we get ready to go into this, tell us what your drug of choice was. Because for me, my drug of choice was sex and pornography. Drew, yours was kind of everything.
Yeah, it was all over the place.
What was your drug of choice for everybody there so they can relate?
Mine was all over the place. It changed with locations. It changed with people. It changed with emotions.
Man.
I was I told you I have no shame. I was a garbage can junkie.
Yeah.
Buffet style. There wasn't anything I wouldn't do.
Well, so you relate to that then.
So actually, to be a little vulnerable here, more open, me and Jay actually used to be running buddies at one point in time. So actually, we still are running buddies, but
Recovery running buddies
now, yeah, which is awesome, man. That's everybody out there can kind of relate. That's not a commonality. People kind of literally venture off. They don't keep the same friends. Just because there's so many things that's in the background. You know what I mean? Like, hey, well, I used to do this drug with this person, man. I probably should shy away, even if they are in recovery. There's just too many things that remind me of.
Yeah, kind of trigger.
So you're almost staying away from your triggers, but I've seen a ton of growth in Jay, and hopefully you've seen the same in me as well. But
Definitely.
Well, Jay, as we get into telling your story, if you were to write a book about your story, and at the very beginning of that, what would chapter 1 be called?
I think we talked about that on the way in. I would say it's funny the name of this podcast is Unashamed because I have absolutely no shame in my story.
No shame.
No shame.
Chapter 1, no shame. So go ahead. The floor is yours. Tell us about Chapter 1. Where does Jay's story start off?
I'm from Meridian, Mississippi. Grew up always feeling different, always being, I guess I was with the in crowd, but I always felt different than the in crowd. I wasn't always included. I grew up always getting blamed for everything, staying in trouble, being a problem kid, and being told I was bad and whatnot, and I probably was. I got into everything from an early age. I can remember getting into literally absolutely everything. Yeah.
Man, it's so amazing because we hear so many of these stories, and there are always so many commonalities and similarities between people's stories, and that's kind of like for me, I always felt like I was a black sheep. Like I was always, always felt like that. So it's always interesting to hear the commonalities of people's stories, even though they're so different. So, when did you have your first run-in with whatever it was? What
I can remember at an early age, we lived next to the golf course when I was growing up, and I can remember at an early age smelling the beer and golf carts and tasting people's beer. I was actually in a meeting the other day and started thinking I had a thing for my favorite cake was rum cake. And this didn't hit me until I didn't remember this until I was older.
Right.
But it was something about the taste of rum cake. I don't know if it was one of those predisposed things or if it was genetic. I don't know. But I can still remember the taste of that rum cake when I was little. Man. Rum cake and poppy seed cake.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Whew, right? Makes sense now, but it's like, that was like probably my first red flag that I can think back and remember.
Right.
Didn't know it was a red flag until I got sober, but it definitely was a red flag.
How much of your story involves like actually where it turns into people pleasing? Like you said, you didn't fit in. You didn't feel like you fit in. And I was kind of the same way. So a lot of my story was based on, as far as how I got into addiction, was based on always trying to fit in some certain type of form, some fashion. So that's why it turned into the buffet style of drug use.
Yeah.
Because you when you shift groups, because somebody wrongs you in this one, or so.
I can't remember when I first started people pleasing, but my whole life that's all I've done. I've worked in service. I've worked in the mental health field. I've worked in state hospitals. I've worked as a firefighter and an EMT the last 10 years. That's all I've ever known is trying to help people or please people or whatever. Fill that void,
It's amazing how we kind of, when we gravitate to that, we make that our job. Like, because
service.
We feel comfortable in that. Like, I people please, but my thing more so than people pleasing is I need the affirmation. Like if I made this bottle and I know this is the awesome bottle,
you got to have somebody to tell you.
I need somebody to tell me that it's an awesome bottle.
Yeah.
But worse than that is like, say I know this is an awesome bottle and Jay knows this is an awesome bottle. And he knows it is, but he doesn't say it.
Yeah.
Because he's like, we don't need to hear that. Then I have doubts. I'm like, oh, man, this is an awesome bottle. So like, I need that.
Right.
But that also kind of stems into people pleasing.
But it also stems into the way your mind works as well, though.
That's true.
It's not just a people pleasing thing. I think it's become a habitual thing where we feel like we're entitled to hear, hey, you did good, you did great, and that's it.
Are you attacking me, sir?
I'm really not.
I felt attacked with that.
Accountability
My
feels like
goodness.
attack when you're not ready for it.
Yeah. So, that was actually the reason why I stopped firefighting and EMS. After so long of living that, I was living like that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde life.
The dual lifestyle.
Yeah. And after a lot of like sitting with it And because for the longest time that was my purpose. I loved running into burning buildings. I loved working medical calls. And then I had to realize that maybe I was just trying to fill a void. And also I was using the trauma that I was experiencing at work as a reason to use, as a reason to drink. So it was that cycle just kept.
So I got to ask you a question, because I work 911, and something I've always had is like, with the aspect of you running into a burning building, help somebody, is it that you're doing it because you want to help, or is it because you're needing that adrenaline?
The gratification. I don't know. I'm definitely an adrenaline junkie. Because I'll do about anything for the adrenaline, you know.
Because I know several officers, you know, they kind of sort of like help people, but they like that adrenaline of getting into a high-speed chase, or they like going after that, you know, making that felony traffic stop, or serving the high-risk warrants.
Right.
So at some point, like, I know people have the good intent of getting into the profession, they want to help, but I've always wondered about that getting hooked on the adrenaline rush of doing the dangerous stuff. So. But
I
anyway.
was definitely hooked on the adrenaline, and love helping people. I'm a very empathetic individual, so it's like I always really felt it when somebody was hurting or when I helped somebody. But eventually, I got to the point where I kept replaying that cycle and using over the trauma that it's like I had to stop and think: was I doing this for really to help people, or was I wanting to feel good from helping people? Because of all the other bad stuff I was doing too. So it was kind of like making me feel better for the things I was doing. And that was ultimately the reason why I walked away. I was, you know, my motive had shifted from helping people to helping people so I wouldn't feel like such a bad person.
Ooh, yeah, that's interesting.
Yep.
But what if some of that was tied into, I know for me, in some instances, I was wanting to be the person that I needed. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Totally, kind of.
Okay, so when I say that, like, you ever heard of be the father that you needed when you were growing up?
Yes.
Okay, so what if you're being the person that you need to save you? You're living that out on the light side, but on the dark side, you're still needing the saving. But in the light, you know what I'm saying? You're trying to live that out. So you're trying to go out and save other people.
I was living exactly what I was doing.
Like, dude, and it's crazy because I was one of those people, like, I would literally get high as all get out and talk about God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, like, I would be like, well, you know, Jesus, you know, and I'd keep on, but not realizing that, like, the stuff that I'm spitting out, and I was basically needing to tell myself these things. You know what I'm saying? So what if, like I said, you know, what if we're being, or being that person that you want to save you? Does that make sense now?
Yeah,
Totally.
So, Jay, I want to talk about, so you were an active firefighter and still using.
I was definitely still using.
So that is, man, I bet you got some stories from that. Like that, that's kind of like,
actually.
That's kind of like, man, I can see that being a catch-22 kind of sort of situation.
Definitely was, man. I was crazy. I was telling myself, you know, I'm saving people, but I would show up in the middle of the night, I'd take calls, high as hell. Heck.
Slippers count.
Yeah. I would. I can remember working a wreck one night, and my brother showed up, and he was an officer at the time, and he just was. I remember him looking at me and being like, "Dude, you need to get out of here." And I was showed up to work a wreck. I was drunk, you know, to work a wreck where a drunk driver hit somebody, and I showed up to work it drunk. You know, I fought fire on other hallucinatory drugs. You know, it's like, yeah, I would show up, you know, tripping or whatever at a fire and fight the fire and enjoy it and think I was doing something good. But it's like,
as horrible as it sounds, that sounds like a really good basis for a TV show.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
right.
Who did we get to play, Jay?
Not Jay.
Yes. No.
Hey, Warner Brothers, hit us up. We got you an idea for a TV show.
So I want to talk a little bit about something we spoke about the other day. fear and love. You know, how is that on your journey? It's when you started figuring out, hey, I want to get into recovery. Obviously, you know, we kind of skipped a part of what led you to addiction. But because I don't want to run out of time, because we tend to do that. But the fear and love, you know, we were talking about how things that we do are motivated by either or, right?
Definitely.
Okay, so even in our addiction, a lot of the stuff that we do is generated by fear. You know, so
100%.
how has that affected you? How is that? You know, I want to kind of touch base with that again. You know, like we were.
Yeah, totally. I think during active addiction, you know, we're all operating from fear.
Right.
We're using because we're scared of whatever. We're using to fill a void that can't be filled with substance, but we tell ourselves it can. I think the majority of my life I've made decisions out of fear instead of love. I think it wasn't until the last few years, because I've been trying to get sober for like the last 8 years, that my perspective shifted to love.
Right.
And I honestly believe that, you know, that God gave me that and removed some of my character defects that kept me from thinking like that.
Right.
You know, we got to talking. I practice meditation now, pray a lot, and they say when you're praying, you're talking to God, and when you meditate, you're listening to God.
Right.
You know? So that is what I've tried to connect with lately, and the meditation was kind of the missing link of my recovery, and it shifted my perspective to love again.
Right.
I honestly believe, you know, that's how we're originally created. You know, that God wants us to be like that originally, and the AA program, NA, whatever anonymous program you're in, Celebrate Recovery, all that meditation, Dharma recovery, all that has helped me shift my perspective back to love. And
So
I'm blessed with it.
explain to those who don't really or are not familiar with Dharma recovery.
Dharma recovery is the Buddhist-based principles of recovery. There's kind of a misconception of Buddhism, mostly in the South, that you know, people think you pray to another god, and that's not true. I'm a Christian Buddhist. And Buddhism is a way of life. It's a practice. It's like yoga. It's a practice. It's taught me mindfulness, and I'm more of a compassionate individual.
Right.
Like I said, I make my decisions from a place of love now.
It's interesting you said mindfulness, because meditation is all about mindfulness.
For sure.
When you're getting to the basics of meditation, mindfulness is key. Like when you start to stray, you gotta bring it back to in the moment, here and now.
Right.
So that's interesting that you said that. I think you're the very first person that we've had that's talked about this.
Mindfulness?
No.
Or the Dharma.
The Dharma
Yeah.
recovery. I don't think we've had anybody else.
We had Reiki. That was.
Yes,
that
that
was
was Sean.
That was pretty close.
That was
you know,
Sean.
but, yeah.
Reiki?
Reiki. Sorry,
Nice,
I said it wrong.
Nice.
You got on me for saying it wrong.
That's the second time I've said it.
So that's interesting, and I'm pretty sure we can find some links for those that are wanting some links on that. We can have that in the show notes for anybody who's wanting more information on that. But I think we skipped a step. I think we skipped where.
What's
Jay,
that?
how did you find recovery? What led to you saying this is enough and finding recovery?
Well, honestly, I had gone through a pretty rough divorce, and I took off, and I ran from it. Instead of dealing with it, I ran from it and took off and moved to Denver, and was out there for a few years, and I was working in the music industry, and I was just running. I was running from my problems, running from my trauma, running from everything that had happened, running from a broken heart, and still carrying on with a broken heart, and trying to fill that void with people, sex, women, partying, music, drugs, anything but what worked, and that was recovery.
You know, that's when that's when acceptance and tolerance, one of the major things that are talked about, outside of Celebrate Recovery, or we even talk about it in Celebrate Recovery, but not as deep.
Yeah.
It's in the principles of NA, it's in their DNA, it's in the DNA of AA as well.
It says in the big book,
Yeah, like literally.
love and tolerance is our code.
But I think whenever we find ourselves in a place where we cannot accept a situation, a thing, a person, it's because of ourselves. It's because we cannot accept, or we've not learned a tolerance. And so therefore we run from our own way of thinking. If we're going to be, we talk about mindfulness, we run from our own way of thinking because we can't accept it. We can't find a way to wrap our head around it to even tolerate it. So therefore, we start to run because it becomes a fight or flight scenario. You know what I mean? Once you have to see a change and you have to start thinking about that change, and you have to be mindful of your way of thinking, you have to hone it in and rein yourself in. I mean, it literally turns into fight or flight.
Yeah.
And so, once again, that goes back to fear, like we were just discussing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I ran out of fear, and that wasn't the end of it. I ran and ran and ran, and eventually landed me. I flew into Meridian. I had an uncle that was sick with cancer, and tried to catch him before Christmas. He was gonna pass any day, and I came home, and I was so strung out and just completely out there that my dad actually drove me to Nashville, and I went to treatment. And while I was in treatment in Nashville, my uncle ended up passing away while I was in there. So that was just more pain to deal with that I wasn't dealing with. Which treatment was great. I went to Cumberland Heights in Nashville, Tennessee, and it was a great treatment facility, but I just wasn't ready. And I did another thing while I was in treatment. I wanted to be, I had just previously left that divorce. I had that divorce, and it was still heartbroken from it. And I did the forbidden 13 step. And I did. And I'm so glad I could share about this today, because it's a horrible idea.
Right.
I met a girl in treatment, and we ended up running off getting married. This was like 2 weeks out of treatment.
Wow.
Absolutely, I don't even know what I was thinking back then. I was thinking I was in love, and we were just two sick puppies. And
But we see it all the time.
Yeah.
People who are fresh in recovery, they're 10 days, 30 days sober, and they're kind of starting to get that clear way of thinking again. Like, and the first thing they're like, "Ooh, I need somebody to complete me." Like, I need
I'm
to
still
attach-
trying to fill that void.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's happening.
Like, you see it time and time again. Like, if you are in recovery for any amount of time, like, you're going to see it, and you're going to see it happen. And eventually you're going to start seeing it happen. Like, you'll see the warning signs coming ahead of time. You'll be able to call it. Right?
Definitely.
It's one of those that you hate to see it coming, because it's going to happen.
All right, so I do have a question. What are your thoughts as far as and I know this isn't really talked about much because it's becoming, even in the recovery community, it's becoming really acceptable, and that's synthetics, as far as kratom.
It's funny you asked that.
Yeah, CBD and all that kind of stuff. It's becoming really acceptable
It
because
is.
it's not the real thing, so it doesn't really count as what you hear.
It's legal, it's over the
Yeah,
counter.
and so, but at the same time, though, it's still habit forming. It's still an issue because it still has some of the side effects.
And you've got a lot of states who are jumping on this, legalizing marijuana.
Yeah.
And with that comes the CBD attachment. So yeah, that's a good question.
Well, I'll tell you, I have one of my best friends, Josh Myrick, is a counselor in Jackson, Mississippi, and he uses me an example all the time to his clients. And I said, brother, you were more than welcome to use me as an example to keep people from doing it. 2 years ago, I would have been an advocate for kratom.
Right.
I would have totally said it was safe. I would have totally said it was fine. After about a year of doing it, it didn't work for me anymore, and I was spending anywhere from $60 to $100 a day on it, and trying to find the best quality, changing name brands, all that stuff. And then I was hooked on it, and then I couldn't sleep at night. And you still withdraw from that stuff like you're on heroin. Well, finally it led me to using heroin.
And just for those who are unfamiliar with this is some stuff that you can buy legally at a tobacco shop.
Over the counter.
Not even
yeah.
just a tobacco
Well,
shop, you can get it in a gas station.
Like here in Meridian, like these tobacco shops that are popping up, there are big neon signs out front of the
Oh,
window.
yeah, we have Kratom, yeah.
And like,
Yeah, there's Kratom everywhere.
and
yeah.
like you said, it's also in the gas stations. And like and it's, so just for those that are unfamiliar with it.
It's just throwing fuel to the fire to the opioid epidemic going on in our country right now. And it is a real epidemic going on. It's killing people every day. Not Kratom, I mean, but it leads people to
Right.
other stuff.
It's a gateway, a lack of better word, I reckon you say, it's leading.
I agree. I think the real gateway is trauma.
Most definitely.
But that Kratom opened that gateway up bigger. I said I would never do heroin. I said that it had already ruined my life from a person I loved who, was addicted to it, and it had already taken me down through there, and I did it.
It's amazing the stuff that we will do, the things that we said that we'll never do.
Yeah.
Especially in the world of addiction, like, because addiction is going to lead you to that place.
But you're literally like, oh, never.
Oh yeah, I would judge people for being on it. I was like, I would never go there.
Right.
And still can look back, and it's mind blowing that I took it there.
Oh, dude, I was an addict that was judging people for using intravenously.
Same.
Screaming. I would never.
Same.
But when it came down to it, and I wanted more and more and more and more and more, it ended up being, I was one of those people that I judged. So be careful, what's the saying? Go be careful who you judge, you're going to end up.
Yeah, totally. Luckily, my addiction never took me there, but as I got sober here the past few months ago, I had a realization, I guess a vision, I guess you could say, I don't know, but I could see my pattern using over the years, and I could see the progression of my disease, and I knew if I didn't do something about it, I was going to go to using intravenously. And,
right.
I know for me that means death, because if I made it through it, it'd be hard to come back.
Right.
Almost impossible. Yeah. So I was terrified to go there, and because I knew what was going to happen to me. It was going to kill me. It was definitely going to kill me if I took it there. And so I was actually living in New Orleans at the time when I got on heroin. And I remember getting in my car, and I drove all the way home and told my parents I need help. Thankfully, at this point in my using recovery career, I had enough knowledge of what I needed to do to get sober. So 3 days later, I was in treatment.
Right.
Willingly, wanted to go this time.
That's because you've been down the road before.
And see,
Yeah.
and I think that's important to note, because we know a particular lady who she's been down the path of recovery several times, and she's relapsed several times.
Yeah.
But every time she relapses, she sees it, and that relapse gets shorter, shorter, and shorter each time.
But it's not even just that. I think she's starting to realize the signs, like you were saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You start to see the triggers, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden, you're just like, hey, wait. You're able, the car that had no brakes that I mentioned before, it finally, the pads are starting to work. So, yep.
I had always heard in meetings that, every time it gets worse, every time the relapse get worse, and I did not believe it. I had to go learn it for myself, and they got worse
Right.
every time, much worse every time. And it's only by the grace of my higher power, which I call God, that I made it out alive, because a lot of people do not, for a lot less than what I was doing.
Right.
Well, as we start to wrap up, you talked about how you're doing the prayer, meditation, and the Dharma recovery.
Mm-hmm.
What other things are you using now to stay sober? What are some things that that you're doing that somebody out there listening can relate to? Or like, oh, I ain't never tried that. Let me try that. What's some stuff that you're doing?
I go to as many meetings as I can. It doesn't matter if it's NACA, Celebrate Recovery, Dharma Recovery. It doesn't matter what it is. I can take something from all of them. I just leave leave whatever I don't need. Take what you need, leave the rest.
That's good advice.
I immediately.
Well, I mean, not to cut you off.
No, you're
I think
good.
there's so many people that get in the recovery group and it becomes closed-minded
Yeah,
to every other aspect of recovery.
Definitely.
You know,
It's almost cultish, almost.
A little
Yeah,
bit. You know, people just get to where they're like, well, you know, I go here. We don't really talk about that kind of stuff over here, so I'm just going to leave you to that. Believe what you want to believe.
I'm an addict. I'm an alcoholic.
Right. But, you know, so many people cut the thought off of, you know what I'm saying? That there's a plethora of so much, you know, that you could get into. But like you said, you're using so many different facets. And that's how I started. I used so many different facets because I was pulling from this, and pulling from this. It was like a shelf.
Took the same mentality that I used with drugs. I did that.
Oh
with
yeah,
recovery.
you got to find it wherever I can.
Yeah. Also got a sponsor immediately. Talk to him every day.
That's key.
100% key. And that's something in the past that I didn't believe either. I thought I could do it on my own.
Yeah.
I got a sponsor. I go to as many meetings as I can. I pray every morning and every night. I get on my knees and pray. I meditate throughout the day. Talk to God as much as I can. And I ask for help. That was the biggest thing that I did not do in the past. I didn't ask for help. And now I know I have to ask for help. You know, when I'm hurting, when I need to talk, whatever. So
Reaching out.
Yeah. Sponsor meetings, prayer, meditation, therapy. Therapy. And
So that's a one that I'm about to actually venture into. Is actually because I feel like there's just so much more that needs to be opened up.
there is.
You know,
Everybody needs therapy.
I mean, I've done.
There's nothing to be
I've done
ashamed
step
about
study
therapy
at
at all.
least, or steps. Worked my steps at least 20 times. I feel like at this point. But you know, even outside of that, I feel like you could just talk to somebody in that field that could just really open up another door. Because I think about how much trauma our brain
Definitely.
really shuts
That's what
off.
we use.
You know, so. Where we've forgotten so much because we were either high, because we were in a moment, or because we were so lost in pornography or whatever that we did not understand the damage.
Trauma you didn't even know was trauma.
Right. You know what I mean? Kind of like I was telling you earlier that you gaslighting me, but you know. Oh man. But honestly, though, there's just so many things that we don't know about. You know, we think we know it all when it comes down to it, but there's just so much. There's so much information. You know.
The biggest thing that I've done on top of all that is I do whatever I can to help another addict.
Yeah.
Help another
Boom.
alcoholic.
Right
Give back to
That's
keep
what, and that's what the steps help me to get back to is who God originally intended me to be. It helps me connect with my heart again instead of operating from fear. I'm operating from a place of love. I'm helping people. I put myself out there to help people. I actually start a job next week as a peer support specialist, so I can help people in recovery.
That's amazing.
I've engulfed myself with recovery. I don't know. There's so much more I could do, but what I'm doing right now is working.
And you better believe this right here that you're doing is going to help. Like giving back,
100%.
put yourself out there, sharing. Somebody's going to hear this, and it's going to make a difference.
100%. I mean, that's kind of the point now is to I share in meetings too, and that's something I didn't do in the past. I would always go in quiet, not talk to anybody. I try to meet people, and I try to share so somebody doesn't have to experience the same stuff I did.
That's right. That's right. Well, man, I could sit here for another hour and talk, but unfortunately we are out of time. But I do want to ask, for anybody out there listening who may want to contact you, maybe they want you to come and share at their group, or maybe because there's several other recovery and sober podcasts out there. Maybe one of them wants you to come on their show. What's a good way that somebody can reach out and contact you, like an email? What's a good email that they can reach out?
My email is the letter J, BARRY 905 at gmail.com, or you can find me on Facebook, J Berry, BARRY,
Awesome.
juice in parentheses.
He's got the radio voice down. Did you hear that? Yeah, he was like, you can reach me at.
A little swagger.
Right.
And through the magic of technology, we'll have his email appear right through here for all you people who are watching. It'll appear.
I love it.
And so, guys, with that, that's all the time we've got for the day. We're glad that you have tuned in. If you have a question for us, or maybe you want to ask us, recommend our next guest, or maybe you want to recommend a topic, or you have a question, maybe you want to tell Drew how ugly he looks today,
Or how short Josh's arms are.
or how short my arms are. Either way, if you want to, be looking at my arms. So if you have a question for us and you want to reach out, you can do that at unashamedpodcast@yahoo.com. Unashamedpodcast@yahoo.com. And with that, y'all, we appreciate y'all listening and tuning in. And until next time, we love y'all and remember to be unashamed.
Thanks, guys.
Love y'all.